So let's get started. I think the only panel that could really motivate all of you that are here in the room, and honestly, I am very impressed. I heard it was a very late night, or so they say, is the CMO panel. We are honored to have CMOs from Bose, New Balance, and CBRE here with Seth Matlins, who's the host of the CEO's Guide to Marketing. They're gonna share their perspective on brand storytelling, growth, and capturing attention in an increasingly complex consumer and media landscape. So please join me in welcoming Jim Mollica, Chris Davis, and Benji Baer to the stage with Seth Matlins.
All right, the first thing he does is rearrange the chairs a little bit.
Rearrange the furniture.
So I can see you guys. I'm selling my houses, so I'm kind of in the interior design phase of the process. I want you to know today's session is brought to you by the letter S. We have sneakers, skyscrapers, and speakers here. So, and Benji deserves credit for that.
That was our late night dinner.
Yeah.
Vision.
So, what's up? How are you?
What up?
All right, let's get into it. So, among the most fundamental challenges that any marketer, every marketer faces today, regardless of the category, regardless of product or service, is how to be noticed, how to be remembered, and how that being noticed and being remembered then drives transaction. Fundamentally, what we're all trying to do is be unignorable in the right and relevant moments. Today, I am joined by three of the most entrepreneurial and influential CMOs in the world for a conversation on how to do and be just this. And of course, the role out of home does and doesn't play in exactly that. So let's get into it. And I wanna start with a question that kind of, let's start at 30,000 feet, right? So it goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway, it's a fragmented, micro-fragmented environment. Reaching audiences, on the one hand, has never been easier. On the other hand, it has never been harder, certainly audiences at scale. And I'm wondering, and Benji, let me start with you. If you just think again from that 30,000-foot perspective, how are you thinking about connecting with your disparate B2B audiences?
Yep.
Because we should know B2B and two B2C marketers. How are you looking at it and what are you doing?
Yep. So I work at a real estate services company, and we have hundreds of thousands of customers in the B2B space. And we've gone through a pretty significant transition, I'd say, Seth, over the last 5 years, moving from a very traditional model that really was seller-led, event-led.
You're talking about a very traditional B2B.
Very
model.
traditional B2B sort of setup. And we've accelerated over the last 5 years, and I'd say what the mix looks like today is very focused on experiences, like what we're seeing today in person, very focused on digital and content, and podcast being a big vehicle for us, actually, where we have an award-winning podcast, and social, which if I had said to my leaders a few years ago, they thought I was crazy, and specifically LinkedIn, Instagram, and moving into YouTube much
So
more.
it's super targeted, and I'm wondering what led the evolution from where you were to what you're doing today?
I mean, I'm not going to take credit for it, but like the world around us changed, right? And so you needed
You do not
someone
want to take credit for that. Yeah.
The world around us has changed, and I came to the table trying to bring to that organization a view of where our customers are. It's that simple. You look at where our customers are finding information. We asked them the question. We did research because I needed data to support my hypothesis, and it has led us to do a pretty significant transformation. We still have a lot more ahead of us,
Yeah, for sure. And actually, we'll get back to that. Chris, same question to you. How are you looking at it kind of holistically and broadly?
In terms of how we're connecting, I would say over the course of the last 6 years, the way we've been able to experience transformational growth is just through emotional connectivity. And whether it's out of home, whether it's social, whether it's broadcast television, being able to communicate our brand values in an autobiographical approach and giving a glimpse of our personality is our goal.
When you talk about an autobiographical approach. We're talking creative and messaging there. Will you open the aperture on that a little bit for the audience? Explain what you mean.
Sure. So by autobiographical approach, I mean we use every piece of content, every story, every element of distribution as an opportunity to introduce ourselves to new consumers or reintroduce ourselves to existing consumers. So if we look at the fundamental truth that your marketing has to be a reflection of your values as a brand, then your communication strategy needs to give consumers a glimpse of who you are as a brand. And in some instances that can be witty, in some instances that can be a little bit more serious, in some instances that can be, addressing the elephant in the room and making fun of yourself. But the filter we utilize is, does this authentically connect back to who we are from a brand personality standpoint? And do we have the ability and vulnerability to connect with consumers emotionally by showing them who we are through our content and through our storytelling? So that's what I mean by that.
Jim, I'm going to stick with you and ask another question, but give us your answer to how you're looking at it holistically.
I mean, the short answer to that is that you need to earn people's time and attention, because you're competing against cat videos and family friends things and professional content. And so in earning that, you're creating content. And I approach it a lot like a publisher. And I spent a lot of time in media companies, and what I learned is that you're creating a valuable story arc for people in whatever medium that you're looking at to try to get that attention so you can introduce them to the brand. And I think the way that out-of-home plays, and we treat it much like
Hold on out-of-home, because I'm going to get there in a second. But more holistically, although if out-of-home, I mean, you don't have to ignore out-of-home, but I don't want to get there just yet.
Yeah, okay.
We got to leave them wanting more.
Yeah. So the point is that we treat it like we're a publisher. The way we have content franchises, those content franchises are created with different formats that are bespoke for each one of the platforms that we're on. And for a company like Bose, which is this fiercely independent company that is focused only on sound, as opposed to treating sound and music as a side hustle, which a lot of the big conglomerates do, all of our content goes through that. So it has a vibe to it that this is, the person that will shop in the independent record stores. This is the person that's, going to buy the latest drop from their favorite artist. And creating content series around there and judging their performance based upon viewership and engagement and traffic. There are all of these metrics that we look at. We really treat it sort of like an editorial approach, and I'm a programmer.
All right, so sticking with you, and now we get to talk about out-of-home. But I actually want to talk about...
Your restraint is incredible.
It's really noteworthy. I want to talk about kind of where out-of-home might fall short for you. Right? Not only are you the CMO at Bose, but recently, and congratulations, by the way, you were named president of the company's luxury audio business.
Thank you.
Right? If we look at the top 100 out-of-home advertisers, there's no shortage of luxury brands, right? You got Louis, you got Dior, Chanel, Tiffany. So as you think about your portfolio, now inclusive of Bose, but maybe more specifically the luxury brands like Macintosh, where does out-of-home fall short for you? Where does, when you look at it, where is it not working? When do you not consider it?
Look, when we use, regardless of what brand, whether it's Bose, whether it's Macintosh, whether it's Sauce Faber, a very high-end Italian speaker maker, it has to be, in my eyes, contextual, really contextual, really topical for that moment. And there's an element of incredible, geolocation that it's specific to that moment. So for Bose, things like Record Store Day. We do, wheat postings like the old school, VFW show halls from the punk days where you'd put flyers out around your favorite record shops around. So, Amoeba Records in LA in your neighborhood, and we do a lot as a support for that.
Do we need to explain what records are to the younger people in the audience?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm still a collector and very, very passionate, as you could tell by these things. But we'll do something like that, or something that we partnered with Chris and New Balance around the U.S. Open, and Coco Gauff, that is a brand ambassador for both of us. There's like a great moment around New York at that time and the way that we create. It's topical. You have an incredible brand platform. It's in the moment. It's very localized for that experience because the U.S. Open is so New York. When it comes to luxury, I think it's the same thing. It's so important. Like, out of home can be incredibly broad and have unbelievable reach, but for luxury, it needs to be discerning, and it needs to show restraint, and it needs to be in the perfect place, and the format has to be right. And so for me, there are a lot of great elements about outdoor. For luxury, the thing that's holding me back is I don't want the restriction of the format. Because the absolute, like the way you create these products is not like regular products. They take an incredible amount of time. And there's all of this
You're talking kind of narrative restriction.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, like narrative restriction, but also, so it's like, look, the actual physical restrictions on it, right? Like, a standard billboard is a standard billboard, which can be great because it can be like this magical, if I think of myself as a publisher, what is that magazine cover, right, as you walk past it. But I think for a lot of the luxury products, like the things that really stand out are when you go outside of those boundaries. Kind of like what LVMH did in New York with their own site.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they treat their entire building as
Right.
out of home, which of course it is. And Benji, you and I will talk about that in a second. Chris, I want to stick with the luxury theme for a little bit because New Balance, through partnerships with Miu Miu, Loro Piana, Teddy Santis, you've done an amazing job positioning, if I may say so. You're welcome. An amazing job positioning New Balance's luxury within the category, right? And even transcending category. And so kind of building on what Jim was just saying, I'm wondering if, as we consider the dominance of retail brands across out of home, right? Knowing you, as we were talking about before the panel, you love OOH. Sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. It's just how I say it in my head.
It's because the capitals. It's capital.
It is capitals. No, it's not. When and where does it fall short? We'll get to the love story in a bit, but when and where does it fall short? What's the audience need to understand?
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, for us, out of home falls short internally when we don't execute the right creative for the canvas that's provided out there in the world. And then secondly, I would say what Jim alluded to, the whole goal of out of home is context. It's connecting the dots. And for us, it's either connecting real-time sport moment dots, like Coco Gauff at the US Open, or the Olympics, or a marathon, or an all-star game, or it's about portraying timeless style. So real-time sport, timeless style. And that's
a pretty clear brief.
It's a very clear brief. We digress. But I think the biggest challenges for us is location and size of canvas. Now, the canvases exist, so we put the onus on our internal teams to be able to execute against those canvases, and they have to execute those canvases in context with our goals as a brand, to be the brand that's the best at the intersection of sport and culture, so real-time sport moments, and to be the most premium athletic brand in the world, so timeless style. And that's essentially the two avenues that we look at for out of home globally. If we miss by a block on geolocation, then you miss by 100%. If you miss by size of billboard in a high traffic area in Harajuku, Tokyo, and it gets blended in with everything else around it, then you might as well have spent zero money. So the size and location is pivotal, especially the more specific your goals are, in both real time, but also in the timeless component. And the last thing I'll say is, like, the reason why I love out of home is because when you're in an environment, whether you're in Paris for the Olympics or you're on Tokyo on vacation, while you're there, it's a permanent environmental fixture. It's always part of your association with that event or that visit, but it's gone in 2 weeks. So you have the opportunity to own an environment and be a permanent fixture in someone's mind within that environment and have the beauty of it being temporary. So that duality and that juxtaposition or paradox or whatever you want to say, I think is extremely valuable in creating that like lifetime memory for a consumer or a person when they're attending a special component, special experience within their life.
It's really interesting to think about it playing to memory structures in that context. Benji, as I move to you, as you talked about earlier, CBRE is a global leader in commercial real estate. How many square feet do you guys have around the world?
Billions, but to give you context, we have offices in 500 cities across 100 countries, from Vietnam to Paris to New York to Brussels, like small, medium, and large. So we're there servicing as an authority in that. So
you don't, as CMO, you don't just deploy out of home in your marketing mix, but as a business, as an enterprise, as a physical structure or series of them in all those cities, you sell it and in fact are it. And I'm wondering, what insights can you share with the audience about what you've learned about what others might want from it and how to best deploy it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and answer this. I mean, the way we think about our spaces that, again, we don't own, we're servicing, is an ability to use out-of-home for two things: to drive demand generation, frankly, for our services. So at the street level, we're doing a lot of that, and that's probably how you've even heard of us before, is through just walking down a street. The second is, and it's more common actually outside the US, to use that real estate, literally and figuratively, to create a brand experience. I mean, everything you guys are talking about are real estate supported. I mean, we help support stadiums. We build airports. So we're creating the canvas in many respects upon which a lot of this out-of-home lives. So it's something that we think a lot about. For our customers, though, who are B2B, who are not necessarily in a moment at a sporting event, they're living their lives working for whatever company, small, medium, or large, we want to be very specific, targeted, and hyper-local for most of our business.
Yeah. All right, so it wouldn't be a CMO panel in 2025 if we didn't talk about AI. Sorry. But you've all talked about creative output. We've all talked, I mean, Chris, I love the line you use: if you miss by a block, you miss by a mile, or you said something to that effect. So if we think about personalized creative output, right, and the promise of what GAI in particular is doing, both not just for creative, but also for media buying and planning, I'm wondering if you can share, and Chris, I'll start with you, how AI is transforming your marketing now, and where you are thinking about placing bets in the near future.
Sure. So I will say that I'm not a fan of utilizing AI for content creation, and the reason that's the first answer. And I think if you want to be a brand that connects to creators and dreamers and like are a crafted premium brand, to me, I still firmly believe that people create the best content. Like the Mona Lisa wasn't created by AI, right?
Well, we didn't have AI.
We didn't have AI.
In fairness.
But it shows that human creation can endure.
Indeed.
However, when it comes to media buying, targeting, any sort of data amalgamation that enables you to pinpoint your target audience in a more frictionless manner, I'm a big fan. So in terms of that, organizing data, amalgamating it, and then providing a clear output on target, I think that's going to play a major role for AI, for us in the future with AI. But in terms of content creation, probably not for the foreseeable future.
Even as a collaborator? I use it as a creative collaborator.
No, no.
Okay.
Not anything consumer facing.
Benji?
So we're using AI across 3 very specific dimensions. One is Gen AI for creative output, and we just built a film that is of the highest quality in about 5 days, customized, tailored to a customer pitch. And there's no way we could have done that with the speed or
to Chris's point, just so the audience understands, humans created the film, you feed the film into the LLM, and then have it personalized.
They're integrated in the process.
Yeah.
So you actually need specialists who know how to, I mean, the level of specialization, it's not that it goes through a machine and it comes out, ta-da.
Right.
It's just that the steps along the way are highly enhanced by an AI tool to create incredible level of finesse and fidelity and personalization and customization that to date would not have been possible. So that's very exciting. We just had a use case, and it was for a bank in Singapore, and it's been very successful. The other thing we're using it that I'm probably most excited about is on the analytics side. Because we sit on a massive data and information as a company, and frankly, we've been thwarted in our ability or slow in our ability to really harness that and understand what those insights are. So it's accelerating our ability to understand our customers better, understand properties better, and help our customers make better decisions. So I think that's a huge advantage. And then agentic AI, where we're starting to use that more in our servicing of our customers.
Yeah.
To sort of flag up, okay, time to change this, time to take this action to prevent a system from failing.
Jim?
This is such a hard question to answer because I love it and hate it. So let me start with the biggest business impact that I've had with AI is really on modeling, on pricing, not even just what we do. What's been most effective is predicting what the competition is doing and being able to see what price premiums that we can charge within pricing corridors, how we different pricing in geographies.
Can I interrupt?
I totally agree with that, by the way.
Super interesting. I've actually not heard that use case, but if you're predicting what they're doing, they're predicting what you're doing. What's the feedback loop on that? Do y'all just wind up saying, oh, that's the prediction now? Yeah.
Look, I think, I don't know for a fact, but my guess is that in a lot of companies, there are people doing this in pockets, and it's not been systematic.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of being in a mid-sized company where you have vertical control is I can say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to funnel all of this information through it, and it allows us to hit it faster. So I'm sure the competition is looking at this, but I don't know that they're pulling it all the way through the go-to-market.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yep.
So, and it's given us some advantage. It really has. Like, I can tell you per product how much more I can charge versus competition in certain product areas, and during different times of the year. We obviously use it for things like targeting and media planning, where it's been great. It's been just fun trying it with copy. So for example, this is a real example that, and I use it as a tool. It's not I'm just gonna say that we're AI driven. There's a little bit of a partnership. We tried with a product description around a headphone, and the prompt was along the lines of, here's all the product details. I want you to write it like Restoration Hardware would for their copy, their product copy, in a Norm Macdonald voice.
Oh my God. I love it.
And it came back, and it was like, okay, this is too far, but it's kind of interesting and cool. And so you start to train it on a bit of your personality for stuff that is not the heightened level of creative. But I'm with Chris on like the soul stuff. You can't manufacture the soul. And I think, somebody tried to bring me an AI creative approach for luxury, and it's like the antithesis of what we're building.
Yeah.
If it takes me 9 months to build these speakers from hand, then we're not going to create this backdrop that is faux. The one thing I will tell you in creative, that's where we started to use it, which surprised me, is that I never have to look at a storyboard again.
Yeah.
And there becomes confusion around what you actually get. Like, the most stressful thing in the world is around content when you see a storyboard and this is the way the pilot's gonna be and it's gonna be this, and then you have something on film and you're like, holy shit, that's not what I envisioned.
Right.
Now, there's like, no, let's run it through the engine, let's
Right.
see what we have, and that has been an absolute game changer for me.
Yeah, I will. I'm sorry, were you going to
I
say?
was going to add one more
Yep,
thing
please.
that you just prompted. We're starting to use it as synthetic customers and to
Yes.
do market research against, which I think is, I mean, market research companies wouldn't
Yes,
want to
there
be
are
one.
a lot of businesses that I don't think we'd want to be in.
Yep.
But I also want to make clear, I completely agree with you. I think the challenge of AI creatively is if everybody's learning on the same data corpuses, it's a commodified creative output, and ain't nobody got time for that. All right, I have a last question for each of you. Jim, we'll stick with you and we'll work our way this way. With out of home top of mind, what's one thing you hope everybody in the room today walks away from this conversation, or something you haven't said yet, thinking about or doing differently because of the words you're about to share? Like, what should be top of mind, and what might they consider doing otherwise?
I think the creative execution has to be unique to the canvas you have, right? Again, going back to context, timing, and locality. Like, that location is really huge. Those three things, and I think my ask is that stop with the physical constraints of what we have. The more that we can open it up, the more dollars that flow in the greater impact for my business. Doing something later on this week with a collab that we're launching with Lisa, the multi-talented superstar in LA, and we couldn't find the right out of home, so we just started buying buildings and started to create the outside.
You didn't call me?
Yeah,
outside of-
Benji's like,
Yeah. Not getting in the rent business, but owning that space for the period of time because we couldn't find the canvas that we wanted.
which is say you were looking for spectaculars and couldn't find spectaculars?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Benji?
So I'm going to pull a real estate adage, which is location, 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 which you guys know, but that is critical to us because of the very local nature of what we do. I think the other piece is driving creativity and humanity through the output is critically important to us, and something for you all to make sure you think about.
Let me ask the two of you a question before getting to Chris and wrapping up, which is you've both been speaking about the creative piece. By and large, that's not their job. That's
Yep.
your job.
Yep.
So if we think about them, like anything, right? That's the onus creatively is always
On
going to be
us.
on the CMO. Anything for these guys that, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I think for me, the thing to think about is like, I would always rather fail or miss the mark with innovation versus size and location. So, meaning, if there's a new innovation within the out-of-home realm that can communicate your creative differently, I would rather miss trying something innovative in the right location than miss by location or size. And I think like having more calculated risk and allowing different manners to communicate like the message via different out-of-home technologies or innovations, like would always rather miss through innovation than size or location.
I'd say time constraints, right? Like the speed with which you can traffic, how quickly you can own something and take it down. I don't want to be forced into, you have this for the month. I may want it for the day. I may want it for the morning. And like what Chris is talking about, the right location, like that's immersing yourself in culture. That culture may move throughout the day, may move throughout the month. And I'd like to be able, if I had more flexibility in sort of time and location, I think that would get you a bigger piece of my spend.
Interesting.
And I think for us would be surprising us with where we can find our B2B customers where we might not think of them being today. So kind of an insight around that customer base that is new would be terribly helpful for us, because I can tell you where I think they are, but if there's an insight or an aspect or a way to get at them in a surprising way, that would be fabulous. Yeah. But I think all of us, location and context is terribly important.
Every time. Jim, Mollica, Benji, Baer, Chris Davis, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.